Good afternoon, Mortgage Monthly subscribers. It's Michelle Gazuli.
And Warren Federley. Welcome to this edition of
MWah Mortgages. We're sitting here on the eve of what is the Bank of Canada decision.
Very important decision coming on the horizon.
For all of us eager mortgage holders that want to know what awaits us. Mm-hmm. What happened last time? On March, when was it?
It was March 6th, and there was no change to prime, which was, I think, hotly anticipated, with a tone of optimism around this, that maybe
Continuing optimism.
We were starting to see the light of day and there would be more increases on the horizon. And here we are this go around.
Tomorrow being the next announcement date. Mm-hmm. And what do we anticipate?
No change to prime.
No change to prime. So this would be what, the fourth time? Mm-hmm. In as many announcement dates?
That's right.
So what's different? This time, the Bank of Canada is saying no change and adding a huge tone of pessimism to what the future looks like. So much so that essentially they're saying no more rate hikes this year at all. So I don't know what happened in 1 month, but a lot of things happened in 1 month, and we're here to sort of share some of those with you.
Demystify.
So what changed, Warren? What things do we know is now the Bank of Canada finally saying
this is on the horizon? Well, certainly oil prices have been a hotly discussed topic. There's such a glut of oil inventory internationally, all around. So oil prices are softening big time. It's very difficult for our friends in the oil patch. It's some hard times ahead because it's much more expensive for them to create oil and sell it and get it to market. And with a huge glut in the inventory right now, oil prices are going to be low and sustained. Consumption spending the world over, especially in Canada, is way down. That's thanks to, I think, the interest rate hike that's been pinching our wallet for the last little bit, the unintended interest rate hike. Housing spending is way down. Thank you, stress tests. People are not as readily refinancing and getting rid of their high interest credit card debt because either they don't qualify or we're seeing a little bit of challenge in getting them off to market there. What else?
Business optimism the world over. I mean, trade has essentially ground to a halt.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, that's not even an exaggerated statement. It is somewhat, but not really. Business optimism is horrible the world over. And why is that? Because of all the tariffs, because of all the trade wars going on. China is struggling. The U.S.
It's uncertain times. Uncertainty.
Truly the uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then good old Brexit, well, that just remains.
The saga continues.
The saga continues. So
I feel so sorry for Brexiters. I mean, depending on what side you're on, it's just a nasty situation all around.
Yeah.
It's taken far too long to actually get it off the ground. So it's causing a lot of unrest, and I'm sure the EU's patience is waning significantly. So it's bad news on that horizon as well.
So we've got oil prices, we've got consumption down, we've got business optimism down, we've got housing down, we've got Brexit going on, we've got the US slowing down, really the whole world. And I mean, this has been the case for the last 18 months. They just kind of all hoodwinked us into believing that things were getting better. But we knew better. So anyway, our prediction,
listen to your mama.
Right? Our prediction for tomorrow is
no change to prime.
And as we said earlier, now, I mean, the first prediction is sort of mid-2020.
At least.
Mid-2020.
And I mean, look back to a year and a half ago when the rates did start to increase a little bit. There was panic everywhere. It ensued. People were calling, and rightfully so. I mean, I get it.
Oh my God, the headline news. Like, this is the end of low interest rates forever.
Here we are, a year and a half later. I mean, Michelle and I are always looking at what the comparative rates are from, one stage to the last. We're at the same interest rate, comparatively speaking, as we were a year and a half ago on a 5-year fix. It's what?
Insured 5-year fixed. 299.
Prime minus 1% for an insurable variable, so 295. So not that far off of emergency low levels. I'm sorry, people who locked in.
It's always a scary thing. I mean, I think Warren and I sit and talk about this an awful lot and say, how do we allay concerns? We can't be all people, so we understand that everybody's circumstances are different. But really, I think the biggest message all along has been, be careful what you read, and be careful what you read into what you read. I spent a lot of time raising my children when they would go in for tests, and I would say, read the question.
And answer the question that's been asked.
Not what you think the question says, what the question actually says. And then you'll be a lot further ahead. I know we are all time starved and we tend to jump in and make wild assumptions.
It's human nature.
Really, it's human nature. But I think, who was it? You were the one the other day. What was that headline that you saw?
That 50% of Canadians were $200 away from insolvency in big block capitals. That's half of our population was $200 away from
Really? That was the headline. That was the headline.
So you click on something like that, it's like clickbait, and you start reading, but it was pulled for Canadians who are on Eastern Canada. Okay, so it's a small
strip, and a small little wisp of a strip.
A small sample size, yeah. It's so you really be careful what you read. Case in point, the carbon tax. I've been talking a lot about this. We just had Easter weekend, so we were talking about news and media.
No prime increase, but a carbon tax.
That's right. And people were up in arms about. I'm personally quite happy about a carbon tax. I am certainly that we're not paying for it from the consumer level. We get a tax credit at tax time against the $307 more we paid at the pump. Woohoo. I personally would be willing to pay $500 and just give it away to have some kind of action plan going on. So, I'm digressing a little bit.
No, I'm sure a lot of people don't realize. So, we only hear the news that people want us to hear. So the news is bad carbon tax, and Doug Ford is out there telling everybody, oh my gosh, and we're going to do away with all of this, and the Liberals are all nuts, and whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, I'm happy that there's a carbon tax. Like, someone needs to start doing something with regard to climate change and with regard to the borrowed time that we are essentially living on.
Very true.
And nobody ever told us along the way, really, or at least it wasn't heard properly, that this carbon tax that's being imposed on the front end is being returned on the back end. So we all do in our taxes get a tax credit for this carbon tax. So as much as we don't like spending it, we do get it back. So just thought that we would maybe make that
distinction. What else is on the topic? So we have our lovely governor, Stephen Poloz. He's been in office for 7 years now. I think this will be his last year.
This is his last term. Year. He's been a good guy.
Yeah, even rose-colored glasses a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with that. Jeremy Powell in the U.S. is certainly making headlines by saying that there is absolutely going to be no raise to interest rates in 2019. That's a very bold and sweeping statement for the Fed. Do we kind of have an idea why he's come out and said that?
Well, outside of dealing with the tragedy that is Trump, and with the global tariffs that the U.S. is basically leading the charge for, those things are impacting the U.S. market as well. And more importantly than anything, they are noting there's a noticeable slowdown because that stimulus spend is now gone. So looking at like for like, they're saying growth has abated in the U.S. Surprise, surprise. So it's all been fictional all along, which is what we've been trying to tell you. Powell has come out and said no more increases for 2019. This is the only global economy that showed runaway growth. The rest of the world is literally melting down. The governors are saying no chance of a rate increase till 2020, maybe even 2021. But Poloz, what's Poloz saying? He's saying no rate increase
He's
tomorrow.
Optimistic.
But it's just a temporary thing, and we're going to come busting out of the gates before we know it.
We can agree to disagree on that point. All respect to the governor. He might have data that we don't necessarily have, but we tend to have our finger on the pulse of what's happening. So we'll see where it goes. Inflation is certainly mild. We are looking at job numbers in the U.S. are okay, but if you uncover a little bit more of what that data suggests, you have families who are working 2-3 part-time jobs full-time to make up one full-time position. That's not a stable environment. If you're working 3 part-time jobs just to bring home the pay of one, it's a sickly picture in my opinion, and I think it's going to get a little intense.
And not only that, gosh knows how many challenges we have in data that's being reported that is incorrect, and I imagine how many times they've counted that same person. Honestly,
They have 3 jobs.
3 jobs. So 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
We have full employment with 3 employees,
I
right?
wouldn't put it past them.
I mean, honestly, so it's not a healthy situation. Unfortunately, I wish it could be, and naturally, it's a double-edged sword for us because that could mean interest rates are going up, which of course we don't want.
No.
But it's not nice either that we are in this constant mire of bad and scary news to be,
Should we talk about the yield curve?
well, and yeah. So here's Stephen Pollitt's, the only guy in the entire world, Go Canada Go, who sees this as a temporary setback while the rest of the world is in utter panic. And what's happened economically speaking? For the first time since 2006, what happened?
So they're seeing an inverted yield curve, which is economic speak for. The yield curve is a measure of optimism and sentiment. So when you look at a 10-year government bond, for instance, the longer you're going to invest your money in that bond, typically the higher rate of return. Kind of like when you're investing in a GIC, for instance. The longer your term, the higher your return, because you're willing to give up your money for that much longer. The shorter term tends to be lower rate of return. When we have an inverted yield curve, there's an indication that there's more return in the short term than there is in the long term, which is a sentiment deterrent. So people are not wanting to have their money out for a long period of time, and it's usually an indication of the evil R word, recession.
Yeah, bad news ahead. So bad news ahead. They can't confirm that long-term yields are going to pay off. They can only confirm short-term, and in this case, very short-term. So for the first time since 2006, we
even before the Great Recession,
in an inverted curve. So economically speaking, the writing is on the wall, other than for Canada, of course. Anyway, so the bottom line is,
no change to prime on the horizon. Yay, variable rate mortgage holders.
Don't believe everything that you're reading, or at least delve a little bit more into what is actually being said. Ultimately, mortgage defaults are heavy-laden, debt-laden Canadians and all this crap. Mortgage defaults aren't determined by interest rates going up 0.25. Mortgage defaults are determined by what?
Jobs.
Jobs.
Are you working? Are you able to pay your bills? The first bill you're going to pay is your shelter cost. If you're not working, obviously you're not able to do that if you don't have savings in place. So that is the main indicator. What are job numbers? They are okay in Canada for now. So I think our economies, at least from the mortgage default side, will be sustainable. Spring market, contrary to a little bit of the doom and gloom today, is alive and well. House prices are very strong still. We were up 1.6% year over year for valuation. Units are still down. But we talked about that in the last update. We have, I've started to see clients who, in the height, who were determined to sell their property at a profit and then wait for the market to cool and buy back in. The market has not cooled, and we're starting to see those people come back into the market for purchasing again, because they've been renting for a year and a half in some cases. And
now they're missing out on the market.
That's right. So, I mean, the message overall is, if you're going to get into the housing market, now is always the best time if you're able to get in. You don't time the market. Investing 101, mortgage 101. You can't time life. So if you're going to get in, you want a shelter for your home, for your family, get in now. Now is a good time to buy.
You have a lot of first-time home buyers going out to the burbs. That's kind of fun.
The burbs.
The burbs.
It's like the Bronx in Canada.
I tell you. And in many cases, I mean, oh my gosh, clever first-time home buyers. We have one of my clients recently went and bought literally a rundown, and in 2 short months turned around and renovated it completely from top to bottom and made himself $200,000 in equity growth. That you don't, that's not hanging around. So,
it's also tax-free growth because it was his primary residence. He'll live there for a year, and when he's able to move up into the market, he'll sell it for a huge profit.
So lots of smart little cookies out there. You're going to have to expand your horizons a little bit, but you guys are super energetic. So creative time, go out to the burbs. You can still, I saw an article about homes that you can buy in Toronto for $250,000, imagine. So basically,
my brow furrows.
The message is, go to the outer skirts of the outer skirts, and you're going to find some cool stuff. And if you reno that and invest back into that, no better place to do it. So anyway, outside of listen to us always, Outside of that, the message is no change to Prime.
Yay.
And hopefully we have another meaty topic for you next go round. We're going to plan out all kinds of fun things. And in the meantime, what are we going to say?
Mwah. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.